Okay, our next handout is 3G, and it's going to discuss a couple of important cell components that you need to know for the future. And it says cilia and flagella. I'm going to actually add one more to this, but these are organelles that are projecting out of the cell. So the first one on 3G is cilia. And so it says cilia are appendages projecting from cell surfaces. They're kind of like little hairs that stick up out of the cell membrane. And what is important about cilia is they are capable of movement. They actually will wiggle. So you've got these cilia wiggling, and the function of cilia is to move a substance or a structure over the cell membrane. So they kind of crowd surf. All these cilia crowd surf a structure or a cell across its membrane. So I just wrote it's capable of movement. Some examples are cilia are located in our lungs, and it's able to move debris from our lungs. So, I mean, think about all the stuff. Even though you think this air is clean, it's actually full of stuff. It's full of bacteria. It's full of fungal spores. You got dust and smoke and dirt, and you're breathing that stuff in. Your respiratory tract are lined with cilia to move all of that stuff out. And that's why every once in a while you clear your throat, right? You go, or you cough. What you're doing is expelling all of that garbage out of your lungs. Kind of an interesting side note to this is smokers. Cigarette smoke doesn't kill cilia, but it paralyzes the cilia. So when you smoke a cigarette, the cigarette smoke stops these little cilia from working, so they're just kind of hanging out. So everything that a smoker is breathing in stays in their lungs. Now, think about this. At night, obviously smokers aren't smoking. They go to bed, they fall asleep. Their cilia wake up and start moving all that crap out of their lungs. So when you think about it, what's the first thing that a smoker does when they wake up? Well, they start coughing, right? And that's because their cilia have worked all night. They've moved debris, stuff out of their lungs. They cough it up. And then, of course, what do? They light that next cigarette and start paralyzing their cilia for the next day. And this is kind of a cycle. That's why we have smoker's cough, because the cilia get put to sleep. So another example of where we would find cilia is in the reproductive tract. It says we have cilia in the fallopian tubes of the female reproductive system to move the egg along. So the egg is crowd surfed through the fallopian tube via cilia. Now, another example, and I don't have it written on there, is the male reproductive system. So a lot of people don't realize this, but sperm do not swim in the male reproductive system. They are actually transported from where they're made to a storage organ called the epididymis, but they're moved via cilia. So they are crowd surfed to the epididymis, where they are stored until they're used. And so I know I don't have it on this handout, but you could add sperm move in the male reproductive system as well. So that's cilia. Cilia are fine hair-like structures that move stuff. Now, something related to cilia is our next one, the flagella. Now, flagella, it's kind of like one big cilia. It projects out of the cell, but in humans, we only have one per cell, and they're going to move the entire cell. Now, this is really easy because we only find flagella in one human cell, and that's our sperm cells. So the sperm cells are swimming when they're in the female reproductive system, and they're swimming because their little flagella act as motors to propel them along. So flagella are pretty straightforward, pretty easy because we only find them in sperm. Now, the third thing on this handout are the microvilli. Now, microvilli kind of resemble cilia. They are extensions of the plasma membrane, but they don't move. They are just like fingers sticking up over the plasma membrane. They do not move. They just increase cell surface area. So there's more surface area where we have microvilli. Now let me give you an example. So imagine my fist is a cell. And so my fist is a cell. I have a certain amount of surface area. Now, if I extend my fingers, all of a sudden my surface area is quadrupled because now I have more area. And what microvilli are for is for absorption. So where we need to absorb substances, like in our intestines, in our kidneys, this absorption is going to occur through cells that contain microvilli. And so these microvilli just extend out. They don't wiggle. They're frozen in position, and they just increase that surface area so that more things can absorb through the cell. So we do find them wherever we have absorption. So I used intestines as an example here, but we do find them in other places like the kidneys, even the brain has cells that have microvilli, but they're going to be used for absorption. All right, so that takes care of handout 3G. We'll move on to the next organelle in the next video.